G'day guys, this is a brand new Ford Ranger Sport 2023. We've been test driving it, and to prove we're doing a proper test, there's a tyre and busted rim. There's a lot of good things about this vehicle that has really impressed me, but there are also some concerns. So if you're looking at buying one of these, definitely watch this video because I will uncover everything from the inside to the outside, and more importantly, how does it go off-road? Coming up in this Ranger Sport review, right there on the screen, you can see all the different points that we are covering. So if you want to skip to any of those points, feel free to use the skip points down below, or come back and revisit a point if you want to see it again. Let's get into it. You might be wondering what the heck this is. These are armor plates, so to speak. They're rhino hide. So I borrowed this vehicle off rhino hide. It's brand new. It's done 1,500 Ks. That's it. So these panels have allowed me a hall pass to drive it through this area right here. Got a bit scratched up, but that's all good because we got the protection panels. One of the standout points about this vehicle is the way it is accessory friendly. It's the only make and model that I know of that has actually had an accessory store come in and help them develop the vehicle. And what I mean by that is they've allowed space for a dual battery system. They've allowed space for a dual compressor in the back, specific bull bars, all kinds of gear for this vehicle, because one of the biggest accessory stores on the planet has worked with Ford. Time for 0 to 100. You might think this is reckless, but if you're pulling out in front of a train, you might want to know how fast you can step on that gas. All right, Dan, let's get the stopwatch going. Go. Woo! Pretty impressive, plenty of power, and having 10 gears, snap, 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 and all of a sudden you're going 100. We've lowered the tyres and the PSI. We've chosen to take the Ford Ranger Sport off-road, 16 PSI front, 14 PSI rear. Why? Because there's more weight in the front, it's unladdered, there's nothing in the rear. That should be a good tyre pressure. I don't really want to go lower because these are on 18-inch alloys, which is not ideal for off-road. The tyre size in particular is 255/65 R18s. So if you were to buy this for off-road, change these wheels immediately because 18-inch alloys, I don't think they have a place in off-roading. Let's call this a gravel road test. We're in 4A, which is all-wheel drive, and we've got some corrugated road here. If you skip the lowering the tyres part, well, the fronts are down at 16 PSI and the rears are 14 PSI. It feels like we're driving on pillows, which is quite nice. And I'm hitting the worst spots right now, and it's, yeah, I mean, tyre pressures does make a difference, a huge difference, but it's quiet. It's very quiet, nice and comfy. Not long until we are on the sand to give it a proper full drive test. And that's why these are not off-road tyres. All we did was a gravel road on the way in. We must have hit a rock or a stick or something and it's just completely blown the tyre out. Credit to the suspension on this, I couldn't even feel it was flat. I could just hear it. This road is pretty shit though. Like it never happened. How to get the Ford Ranger Sport into full drive? Nothing at all in the manual, which is pretty disappointing because it's very complicated, this system, but I'm going to simplify it to you. First of all, we have this section here. It's got 4 buttons. 2 high, which is 2-wheel drive, 4 high, 4-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive low. That's like for your slow going, soft sand, ruts, rocks, that kind of stuff. And then we have 4A. 4A is, generally speaking, just all-wheel drive. So all 4 wheels are activated, but it's not true 4-wheel drive. So you can use that on the highway in slippery conditions. Gravel roads, that's where I'd use the 4A. More importantly, you're sitting in this vehicle, you want to go full driving. What do? First of all, in park, neutral or drive, you can select 4 high and it'll do it on itself. It will say full drive shift in progress, and we're in 4 high right now. To get to low range, we must go to neutral, and then we pressed 4 low, and that's the general way of getting a full drive into low range on most automatic vehicles. So now we're in low range, we can do all that stuff. That's all you really need to know. Wait, there's more. If you're in low range full drive, you're going to be probably encountering bushes and stuff, so you want to turn park assist off, because otherwise it's just going to jam up the brakes and it's going to stop your vehicle, especially if you're reversing and there's like a little bush or something. It's going to detect anything. Turn that off. Turn off electronic stability control, which is generally turned off in low range anyway, but if you're in high range you need to turn it off. But this big button here, that's how you get your diff locker, but it's a 2-stage process, which is a bit annoying, I've got to say. Why not just have a diff lock button here forward? Anyway, we're going to press this, and then on your infotainment system you have more menus. You have your downhill assist control ready. Okay, let's turn that off, we don't need that now. Let's say we want to lock the rear diff. You got to go on the infotainment system to do it, which I think is a little bit silly, not just having a button somewhere. You do have another menu. This dial here says driving modes. If you activate that, the first driving mode is normal, then you got eco, that's just for road. Towing / haul, slippery surface, 4A. Mud, rut, sand. Okay, I'm gonna stop myself right there because it just gets so confusing. So I'm gonna break it down right here. There are 5 modes, right? Normal, eco, towing. Use those. Yes, maybe use the slippery one. The last 2, don't even use those. To sand mode, what that's going to do is it's going to take you out of low range, put you into high range, lock the rear diff, and just do all these other preset settings, which I disagree with. It's not going to help you if you are in a boggy situation. It's very confusing, so just don't use the last 2 settings on that. Use 4-wheel drive the simple way. I want to be in 4-wheel drive high. I want to be in 4-wheel drive low. I want to be in all-wheel drive because I'm on a gravel road. Use those settings. Don't bother with the last 2 of the 5. We're in low range. No other assistance in. We're just going to see how this handles it. Let's go, Ranger. Alright. Finding traction, so there is some kind of traction control working in the background, which is cool. It's actually really good. Alright, like I said earlier, glad this thing's got bloody rhino hide. Oh, this is off camber. Always nervous when I'm driving someone else's car, you know. Enjoying the content so far? Well, hit that subscribe button down there. It goes a long way to help out. And if you want to help out even more, well, you can check out what that join button is. That's YouTube members, which gives you a whole bunch of other things. Pretty impressed with first gear low. That is very slow. That's okay. I'm impressed. First gear low is good. Very good. Got some big whoop-de-doos. Let's see what the clearance is like and how she goes down this. 4 kilometers per hour, 5 kilometers per hour. Whoop. That must have been a tow ball. Applying a little bit of brake myself. Ooh. I think that was in the side step. Some deeper ruts in this section. I'm going to try this with downhill assist. Okay, here we go. Downhill assist on. Just doing some weird braking here. Prefer to control it myself, to be honest. Because all it's doing is applying brakes on different wheels. That's downhill assist. You might as well just put it in low range and put the rear diff lock on and just go down slowly. Or just low range and gear down manually. For a beach cruise, and we have a Wilbinga beach, which is quite soft at the best of times. No doubt this thing's going to handle it though. Plenty of torque, plenty of power. Tyres are down. Keen to see how many gears it's got in low range. So third gear. Has it changed? I can't tell. No idea what gear I'm in, but I have been up to 45 kilometers per hour. Yeah, handles it pretty good. I absorbs the bumps nicely as well. I've got to say the suspension in this is pretty good, and I'd assume it'd be tweaked to some degree being the sports version. One thing that's interesting though, they actually have developed this vehicle, Ford has, so it can suit the BP51s and this other, the old man Emu suspension from ARB. There's a couple other things as well, which I'll refer to. Yeah, pretty fun to drive. On the gauge, it shows me the temperature of the gearbox, which is actually quite good, because if you're towing or if you're driving on the beach like I'm doing right now, you want to know if your gearbox is getting hot or not, especially for an automatic. In terms of gearbox temperature, it got pretty hot there. So I thought it was alright for a while, but then going up and down on the beach, it's quite soft, it's quite hot today, so the sand is really loose. The vehicle definitely was working, the revs were high, low range, and it was really heating up that gearbox. It was 1 bar away from the first warning, which is the orange section, and then you got the red section, which is obviously bad. Since sitting here for a little bit, it's dropped 2 bars pretty quick. I'm not sure how it's gonna go on a really, really hot day in low range on a really, really soft beach. It'll be interesting to know. May need to look at upgrading that cooler if you're gonna use it for full driving. Time for a quick whip around before that storm comes. Let's talk numbers first. Ground clearance, that is 234 mil for a stock vehicle. That is pretty damn acceptable for taking this thing off-road. Measuring tape, bowl of water, wading depth. How deep can you go through water on the new Ranger? About there. So basically, that is your wading depth. Not very significant, is it? Deep water crossings, you're definitely gonna need a snorkel. The wheelbase on this is relatively long. It's 3 meters, 270 mil. That's quite a long wheelbase. Departure angle is 23. The ramp over angle is 21 degrees. That's because it's got such a long wheelbase. And the approach angle is 30 degrees. Finding on the dunes and that, I had plenty of clearance on the front, plenty of clearance on the back. I did bottom out once on the rear, but it was a deep hole. Ford Ranger turning circle, 12.9 meters. I reckon the front end of this looks pretty darn good. I actually dig it. And I reckon I've taken inspiration from the F-150, F-250. But what do you guys reckon? Let's open the bonnet. And this is where the American thing comes into this vehicle, because normally you'd open it from that side. But no, you got to go to the passenger side, which I find is a little bit strange, but it doesn't really matter, I guess. Behold the 3-litre V6 turbo diesel with a shitload of power. This thing's got some balls. Numbers that you boys care about, 183 kilowatts and 600 newton meters of torque out of this V6. That's pretty impressive. And as you've seen already on the road, good punch. And Ford, why no gas struts? It's 2023. As far as the engine bay goes, there's plenty of room. And what they've done is, right, this is a cool part. They've been working closely with ARB. What they've done over here is they've left an actual spot for a dual battery tray. You can buy that from Ford as well. This is what I really like about this vehicle. And I really hope, and I've said this already, I really hope other manufacturers start doing this as well, especially in Australia for off-roading. Back at the tub now, there's a couple of things I definitely want to point out that I think are really cool. Number one, there are lights in the back of the tub. So I'm not sure about you, but how many times have you wanted to get stuff out of the back of your tub and you can't see what's in there? So these lights, I reckon, are a wicked addition. One thing you need to know about the tub lights though, these lights in here, your door has to be ajar. If I shut the door, they turn off. I can't figure out how to turn them on with not having a door open. There might be a way, I can't work it out. Tie down points in there, there's 4 of those. Another thing I really like, there's a step on the side here. So you can actually step up, lean in, grab some stuff out. Additional to that, there's a socket on this side, like a ciggy socket, 12 volt. You can actually get different variants of this. And on that side, there is a type of bracket or something. You can get a dual compressor, which is the ARB compressor, to fit inside the tub on the other side. Tub measurement from the headboard to the inside of the tailgate, it is 14 1150 long. From left to right, 1400. So almost a box. But wait, the most important measurement is of course from the wheel arch to the other wheel arch, which is only 1150. Well, when I say only, there's still a fair bit of room there. That's the space you got to play with. Interior time, and what good timing for interior time because it's raining outside. I feel like I'm in the future. I do dig the interior. Got a few holes you can put things on, like a few pockets with some grippy stuff, I guess, so your phone doesn't fall out. Glove box, you've got USB-C, USB-A port. Everything else is pretty much where you'd expect it to be. But it took me a while to figure out how to exit the car because embarrassingly enough, I couldn't find a door handle. It's in here, like that, which I think is pretty neat. Speaking of accessories you can add, I saw something on the Ford website. You can get a switch panel that actually goes into this. So if you want like your extra lights, say you got roof lights or bull bar lights, things like that, that's where you can put them all up there. The seats are leather, standard with the Sport, and they're one of the most comfiest chairs from stock that I've sat in. Like, it really does hug you in. Apparently the seat has 8 different adjustments that are electric. The passenger seat has 6 adjustments manual. The dash itself seems quite futuristic. I do miss the odometer, but that's just me. So if you like all this fancy kind of stuff, well, I guess it's pretty good then. Now the gauge for the temperature for the actual gearbox, I was actually quite impressed that it had it in here, because if you have an automatic vehicle and you're doing towing or you're doing a lot of heavy duty off-roading with an automatic, you really want to know what your gearbox is doing. You're asking a lot from your vehicle, so knowing what the temps are like is quite vital, I find. So that is good to see on here. However, the temps on there were getting pretty high, so that's one concern I have with this vehicle. Another thing in this vehicle that I'm not quite fond of is this gear stick down here. So if you go to reverse or drive and that, you can't really feel it much. It's too loose. I really had to pay attention to what gear I was in if I was pulling out of somewhere, because it's very easy to go past or beyond the actual gear that you're after. The manual section, it's a little bit finicky on the side where you got to shift up and down. I kind of prefer where you use the thing to go up and down. So when you put an automatic into a manual mode, rather than having a little button down here, I think you're better off sliding it to one side and you got plus and minus, so you can change through the gears. Apple Play. All right, this screen is a bit different because it's vertical, it's not horizontal. You get more of a square map, as you can see. It's just a little bit different the way it's set up. So you got all your stuff that you normally have. I do use this a lot on Apple Play or info systems with the Google Earth. I find that pretty handy. How good's the stereo? I can't tell you. I haven't cranked any tunes through it, so can't help you there. Are we there yet? As far as the seats to the sides go, heaps of room. Middle seat, let's try that out. Definitely not for adults. I've got severe man spread going on here. If I had passengers to my left and right, they're not going to enjoy this because well, I wouldn't enjoy it. I have to sit like this. But as far as the seats to the sides go, heaps of room. Let's talk pricing. How much are you paying for the Ford Ranger? And in specifically, well, the Sport goes for $74,000. Now for the base model, which is the XLT, that is $71,000. And when you go down to the Platinum, you're looking at $83,000. Whoa. The Raptor's $93,000. Holy moly. All right, now let's take those out of the equation. We have the Ford Ranger Sport. Let's pit that up against the SR5 Hilux, because they are kind of the rivals here. The SR5 Hilux, if you go for like a black or a graphite color, is about $71,000. So there is $3,000 difference. So that is the only difference between these two in pricing, which isn't much. So there's your tough choice, people. There's your tough choice. Conclusion. I did make one at the end of the day, but I feel like I was on a bit of a high because I just enjoyed that vehicle so much. I would buy this over a Hilux. So I've had time to reflect. It's been about a week later now. Ford Ranger Sport. Would I buy this? Well, As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm pitting this up against the SR5 Hilux. And the reason for that is these two are the most sold utes in Australia. But I feel that the Ranger is going to overtake the Hilux, at least on a consumer level. So I think the Hilux is only ahead on sales because of mining and civil, you know, like fleet vehicles. Because it has the name of reliability, the unbreakable Hilux. But the thing is, if you're only going to buy a brand new car and keep it for a couple of years, like a lot of people flip their vehicle 2-3 years, maybe sometimes 5 years, does the reliability thing really matter that much? Because you're going to be covered under warranty anyway. So I think the consumer is going to lean more towards the Ranger because you get all this extra tech. It's a nicer vehicle to drive. It's got a 10-speed automatic, which you don't even feel the gear changes on the road. You just get thrown back in your seat, especially when you try 0 to 100. It's just really good. It's a really good car. Look, I did have a bit of a concern about the gearbox getting pretty hot. Well, I said earlier that the gearbox was doing quite well, but it's actually getting me hot now. That is definitely a point we need to point out. In the past, Ford has had trouble with gearboxes. This is a brand new gearbox. This is a first generation of the V6 3-litre and the 10-speed gearbox. A lot of time still need to go by to see, because it is always risky buying the first of the series. But the question is, which would you go? Would you go to Ford Ranger Sport, or would you go a Hilux SR5, or would you go something else? Something else completely, like another dual cab ute, obviously, because that's what we're talking about. What would you do? And why would you or would you not get the Ford Ranger Sport? Thanks for watching. Comment down below what I should test review next time, and I'll see what I can do. See you later.